up, BR Youth? My name is Ben Bankston, and I'm going to be your host tonight for our first ever BR Youth online experience service. So, this service, we're so happy you guys are here, and this service is just one of the many things that we are doing to help keep our spiritual community connected while the coronavirus is trying to keep our physical community disconnected. But this past Sunday, I asked you guys to send in your best celebrity impressions, and let me just say, you guys showed out. They were hilarious. We've got some honorable mentions to show you before we reveal the big winner. Let's check them out.
Stitch says Ohana means family.
Matthew McConaughey. I'm kind of like the chillest dude in the universe. Paul McCartney. You might know me from a little band called the Beatles, but yeah.
You're sweating. Relax. Take a deep breath.
Now, those were hilarious, but there's only one better one, and it is coming up right now. So get ready for the big winner.
G'day, my name's Steve Irwin, and today I have my friend Joey, the teddy bear. He's originally hails from Australia in the outback, and Joey's quite a dangerous predator. I've got him tamed though right now. Alright, thanks for watching, mate. See you next time.
Camden Mason, congratulations. You're our first ever BR Youth Quarantine Survival Kit winner. Now, everybody else watching this live stream could have one of these too if they had participated and won the challenge. But don't worry, we'll be doing this for a lot of weeks coming up till now. And every week we'll have a challenge that you can win. Let's take a look at what Camden Mason will be winning and what you could be winning. Some trail mix. Well, I think I'll keep this for me. But participate in our challenges and you could win one too.
Even though it's really easy to worry about what jobs I want to pursue when I grow up or what career choices I want to do when I grow up, I know I need to turn to Jesus.
God has reminded me over the past years that when I feel lonely, I don't have to feel lonely because I have the Holy Spirit with me. And God gives me worth. So that feeling of being unworthy is out the window.
I'm afraid that if I'm going to follow God, but it's going to be for nothing because I'm not really his child, so that keeps me from following him. But one thing I've learned is fear is not from God, it's something from the enemy. The enemy puts it in our way to keep us from doing what God wants. So if you're confident in God, he is going to help you and give you what you need.
No matter what.
No matter what.
What is up, Blue Ridge? It's good to see you guys, man. I'm Eric. I'm one of the pastors here, and we are so glad that you guys are online and joining us. I'm here in the loft, believe it or not, and I gotta be honest with you guys, it's just not the same. We don't have the music going, we don't have the games, you guys aren't here, and yeah, man, I just miss connecting with you guys and seeing you, and obviously times are different right now. You know, everything that we are going through, everything that is happening in our country, you know, you guys are out of school. I mean, that's incredible because for some of you, you're like, yes, my prayers have been answered. Others of you, you're like, there's a sadness because this is, you know, the environment where you would connect with people who you know, your peers, your friends, right? And then for some of you, man, you 12th graders, unfortunately, you guys, you don't even get a ceremony this year. So I know that there's also a sadness to this. You homeschoolers are probably like, everything's the same, but I don't have co-op, right? So yeah, man, it just hits us all in a different way. But here's what I love. You know, even though all of these things are happening, this is a time where we get to leverage technology and we get to stay connected to you guys. And listen, I'm not a techie person, right? But I love how we get to use this to stay in touch. And so we're going to be here every Wednesday at this time, and we're going to use this as a way just to connect with you guys. We're going to have a talk. You know, we're going to have a time of praise and worship like we had. We're going to have some other stuff, but I just encourage you guys to tune in each week because we're just pumped. We're pumped, man. We're really excited. And one of the ways we're going to kick it off today is we're going to launch a new series. And our new series is called No Matter What. And you guys got a little taste of this through our bumper because you heard a few students who said, no matter what. And they said that because for us, the heart of this series is that no matter what, we get to reflect and know not only who Jesus is in our life, we get to know him, but we also get to reflect him to others. And these things can happen, events can happen in our life, but our circumstances don't take us away from that. And so that's really where we're going in our series, that no matter what, we get to know and reflect who Jesus is. And so what I want to do is just kick off this time with you because I know that that's our mission, but the reality a lot of times is pretty different. Like for me, the reality times is, I put stuff off. And I don't know if you guys are like me, but I'm sure you can relate to this idea where you just like put stuff off, man. Like here, a great example, and this happens 2 times a year for me, is the dentist. I hate the dentist. I hate going. It's not a pleasant experience. They have their little instruments of pain that they use to scrape the plaque off of my teeth. And yeah, it's like every time I'm going, I'm just like holding the chair as tight as I can. But here's what happens. They tell me the same thing every time. They're like, Eric, you need to floss more. And do I floss more? No. Like I put it off. And then like a few days before my actual appointment, I get a reminder or I get a text or my wife tells me, hey, you've got a dentist appointment. I'm like, oh man. So what do? Like I kick it into overdrive and I begin to floss more. And it's really quite hilarious if you think about it because for some reason in my mind, I think that even though my appointment is only a few days away, if I kick it into high gear now and start to floss, like every day, I'm not going to get a cavity. It's just interesting how our minds, how they work in that way. But I think you guys, you get the point, you get the idea because you put things off too. Like when you guys were actually in school, right? Your projects, your tests. I'm sure there were plenty of times where it was just so easy to put those things off until the very last minute. For some of you who are, well, all of you, you're at home now. But like our chores, like I wonder if your parents have given you chores and things to do around the house, and our tendency is just to put those off until the last minute, just to that moment where we can avoid getting in trouble. Or, I don't know, maybe if I can get a little more personable, it might be our faith. Things where we have thought about God or the church or, becoming a follower of Jesus is something that maybe we're just putting off, or maybe we think we're going to get to on down the road. And so the point is that you and I have these times where we tend to put things off, but instead of being that kind of person and putting things off, here's what I want to do. I want to dare you to lean in to some of the challenges that we're going to see in our series. As we look at our series, we're going to be going through Romans 12, just that chapter. We're going to camp out in that chapter because we just believe there's so much good things in there for us, especially now with the time that we are living in. And so what I want to challenge you to do, I want to dare you to lean into the challenges that we're going to see in here. And some of those are, I want to dare you to be different. I want to dare you to evaluate, and I want to dare you to expect results. And those are the 3 main points that we're going to look at tonight. But before we get into that, I want to give you guys a little bit of context, okay? Because as we look at Romans 12, there's this whole part of Romans, chapters 1 through 11, that Paul talks a lot about. And in fact, he kicks off Romans 12 with the statement as, therefore, or if you're reading in my translations, NLT, it says, and so. And he's making a point that you don't want to fly by chapters 1 through 11. You don't want to miss chapters 1 to 11, because what he does in those 11 chapters is he basically describes who God is and the love that he has shown us, But even more than that, him giving up what was most precious to him, his son Jesus, who went to the cross to die for us, to pay for our sins so that we can be forgiven, so that we can be cleansed, and so that we can have good standing with God and ultimately have a relationship with him. And that's what the first 11 chapters are all about. But then there's this moment in chapter 12, the first word, the first two words, where he's saying, don't miss this. We've just spent 11 chapters talking about the mercy of God, the gift that he's given us. And now he's saying, we just talked about what God has done for us, and now chapter 12 and on is going to be about what we get to do for God. Ultimately, the response that we have in light of the gift, the mercy that God has given us. And some of the ways that we're going to unpack that is by looking at verse 1 and 2. So if you guys have your Bibles, I'm reading from the NLT, and he says this. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and a holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. So, right off the bat, he's talking about our body. And I don't know about you guys, but maybe you're like, that's a weird place to start, because why does God care about my body? A lot of times we don't have a healthy view of our body, especially when we compare ourselves to other people and we say, well, I'm not as pretty as her, or I'm not as, I don't have the build of this guy, or I don't have the skin of this person, their skin's clear and all that stuff. And we can just kind of live in this place where we compare and contrast ourselves. But here's the whole point about our body. Our body is significant not because of the way it looks. Our body is significant because of the way it acts. Because of the way it acts. And the way we act is to be what Paul calls both a living and a holy sacrifice. All right? And so the first thing is, what is it to be a living sacrifice? And what he's saying is that's where you and I, we literally take our hopes, our plans, these things that are just most precious to us, things that we find most important in our life, and we're willing to surrender those. We're willing to lay those down at God's feet and say, I'm willing to surrender these over to you. And essentially, this becomes not like just a decision, but more of a lifestyle. And here's an example. We asked you guys to send in your impressions, and they were awesome. I mean, yeah, like Camden, you crushed it, man. It was hilarious, bro. But you guys were able to do those impressions because you watched these people in real life. You saw their character. You saw how they lived their life. You saw what they said. You saw how they acted. So there was just this part of you and us where it's natural to imitate these people, to give impressions of them. But what Paul is trying to say is that think about this in the sense of our faith. Think about this in the sense of what we get to not really impersonate, but what would it be like if others actually impersonated how we lived our life? Because it was so different, so radically different. Okay? Because that's what I want you guys to see here. There's this literal piece where he's saying, when you are making a sacrifice that is a living sacrifice, you are essentially, hopefully, and what we want people to imitate is this picture of you're different than everything else. You're different than how the world treats people. You're different than how the world maybe views character and integrity. You are different in the way the world, considers others. There's so many different ways in that. But the idea is to be a living sacrifice, that we hold those things loosely. We hold those things loosely that are so precious and dear to us. But the other part is there's this holy aspect. What it is to have both a living but a holy sacrifice to God. And that's where he's talking about there's both this outer part and an inside part. King David, I loved how he said that our hands and our hearts would be pure. God is not only concerned with what's on the outside. He's not only concerned with your body. He's also concerned with your heart. That there's this holiness there. It's this idea of giving God our best and not something that's just a lesser version of that. You know, Paul also, he said this, that you are not your own, for you were bought at a price. So glorify God in your body. So there's this call to be different, and I dare you guys to be different. Be someone who tries to model what it is to live out this living and holy sacrifice to God. And so if we keep reading, we're going to see something else that he says, keep going. Don't copy the behavior and the customs of this world. This is in verse 2. But let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So, you know, there's this idea of what it is to be conformed. You know, that we don't want to be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world. And there's a caution here. There's a reservation. There's kind of a moment that he's saying, you need to check yourself. You need to evaluate where you fall into this. And one of the ways that you can do that is to ask yourself a few questions. One question is this: are you pulled by the world's influences and ideas? Another question might be, what have you maybe allowed to shape your character? You know, because there's this thing where he's saying, man, I dare you to evaluate. I dare you to evaluate whether or not you are someone who has just conformed to the pattern of this world, or are you doing what he said earlier, or are you trying to model this life that has this holy and living sacrifice to God? Because when he talks about, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think, here's the picture I want you to think about. There is literally a metamorphosis that happens. And I know that's a big word, but just as like a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, we move from being a believer to a disciple. And there's a change from the inside out that happens. And it's not a one and done thing. It's just continuous. It's ongoing. And that's why Paul also, he said these words that we're being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. It's a moment by moment, a step by step thing in our life where the Holy Spirit is shaping us to be more and more like Jesus. And one of the ways that this can happen is through the way that we can both connect and we can care. And guys, we're in a time right now more than ever where connecting with others and caring for others, man, opportunities are just right at our door. And that's why we want to encourage you guys to tune in, you know, every Wednesday, because this is a time where we can connect. You guys are going to have a time to go to small groups after this, and you're going to be able to connect with each other. And our hope and our prayer is that you will treat that as a time to, you know, to have some conversations that are a little deeper, conversations that are more, you know, centered around, hey, how can we encourage one another, but also, man, how can we pray for one another? How can we just continue to reach out and stay connected during a time where we can't really be face to face a lot of times? And the other piece is care. You know, I've heard so many cool stories about things that people are doing, like they are baking cookies and brownies and bringing them to people in their neighborhood, and they are leaving them, you know, on the front porch, or they are making notes and cards and signs, and they're bringing them to people that they know, or they're able to do a store run for people who can't. And the point is that God has given us a lot of opportunities to care for the people around us. And yeah, we're saying to be safe, to follow, you know, all the things that our government officials have said, right? To do all that, but to be mindful of the places that God has given you to care for one another. And that's that part where I dare you to evaluate, because, you know, if you're going through, a metamorphosis like I talked about, where you are moving from a believer to a disciple, then God is transforming you and he's renewing your mind to where those things should be on your radar. They should begin to surface, and you should be looking for ways to represent him and reflect him in those ways. And this is our last point, and this is where I get really excited, because I want to dare you to expect results. I want to dare you to expect results, because if you truly are trying to be a living and a holy sacrifice to God, if you're not trying to, conform to this world, then you can expect results, because you're going through that transformation process that God's changing you, right? And you can expect results. And then that's why this last part of in verse 2 says, then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. I mean, guys, hear me. If there's anyone who understands this, it's Paul, because if you don't know the story of Paul, for so much of his life, he used to hunt down other Christians. Like the younger part of his life was spent just trying to wreak havoc on Christians and just annihilate everything that they stood for. But then he gets converted, comes to Christ, and God softens his heart, and then he spends the next half of his life being the complete opposite, and sharing with as many people as he can the good news of the gospel, and going to wherever God needed him to go, to like the ends of the earth pretty much. And that is that transformative power that I'm talking about. And so if anybody understood this, it's Paul. And so I want to dare you guys to expect results. I want to dare you to expect results. And so if I could boil this all down to one thought, it would be this, and it would be, don't put off what you can live out today. Don't put off what you can live out today. And so as we close, we're going to have a time where we're going to have another song. And I want to be honest with you guys, I love this song. It's actually one of my favorites, and it's my favorite, or one of my favorites, because you can just sing this song with where you're at, because it talks about how we are a vessel that's not just a flawless vessel, but one that is broken. It's cracked, it's blemished. It's not the one that you would have, at the window of the store. It'd probably be one that you keep in the back. But I love this picture because, we are broken, but God has said it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you're flawed. It doesn't matter how you're imperfect. What truly matters is that I want to use your brokenness to reflect who I am. And so my challenge for you guys as we go into this time of worship is to think about these words, how they impact you, and maybe what God wants to show you, because as you guys know, we have such an opportunity right now in this day and age, in the here and now, to represent him. So as we sing this song, I challenge you to listen to the words, reflect on what it says, and ask God to show you something new about who he is.
Well, guys, so we are so thankful that you tuned into our Be Our Youth online service, and we are super excited for our life groups and our small groups that are about to happen right after this. So here's some important information. If you guys filled out that Google form that we sent out and got placed in a group, then you should have gotten an email with the link to your Google Hangout. So all you need to do is go find that email, click your link, and then click the word join, and you'll be in your small group. Super easy. But if you guys didn't get a chance to fill out that Google form, then it's not too late. You can still be a part of a group tonight. So what you need to do is go to our YouTube description box below and click that link. And Jared Dunn will be in there in a chat directing you guys on how to get into a small group tonight. So make sure you keep those emails, because these groups are going to be going on as long as we're doing Be Our Youth Online. Guys, we are so excited for the rest of tonight, and we hope you have fun in your groups. See you next week.